That'd be great.
I genuinely feel like there needs to be more like really funny music videos, like really like properly like scripted as really funny music videos.
That's a great
We've
idea.
we've seen all the cool stuff. That's not to say if I got the budget, I would do something really cool, but I would definitely not be like, I know I really want to get all these like cool neon lights, but let's just make it funny. Like that's not gonna float. But
You just described like the essence of comedy, where you're like, if I actually had the money, ditch the comedy. I want to be badass, fucking super.
Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Great.
Excellent.
How's the America?
Yeah.
All right.
You know, you're on the East Coast, right?
Yeah. Yeah. America's not bad. We're crumbling.
Better now.
We're looking to see if anybody will take. I would love to leave, to be quite honest.
Really?
Yeah.
All my American friends have said the same for the last 8 years.
Right? It's
but
really.
They're still there. So, yeah.
I know, because I'll tell you why we're still here. No one will, if they've done what I've done and Googled, like, will you take me in your country? Other countries are like, no.
Like, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say the UK is probably not a lot better. So,
that's true. Yeah.
I have a lot of friends from that side, and they tell me so many like when we talk about it, they have complaints on like the opposite end of the spectrum as us, right, John? So like healthcare is like harder to see a doctor. Everybody gets it free, but you can't, like, it's tough to get. And this.
But that's so crazy. Like the healthcare thing is so fucking nuts to me anyway. But I can't stand when like, especially Americans will be like, oh, but you have to wait to see a doctor. I had a shoulder thing recently because I turned 37, and that's what you get when you turn 37. So they're like, congratulations, your shoulder hurts now. And I was like, cool. So no cool video games, no new clothing, just shoulder pain. But I had to like literally like, it took me, I called my insurance and I was like, hey, I got something going on. I need a referral to go get an MRI done. And they were like, oh, your doctor left in December. He's not practicing anymore. And I was like, heads up would have been cool. Maybe, something. Yep. So that happened. And then cut to, they found me like a new private care practitioner, and they were like, but she's booked for a year. And I was just like, yay,
but
America.
How? Yeah. I mean, it's mental. I used to live out there. I was there for like a year in LA, and it always struck. I was avoiding, like, I had my wisdom teeth removed before I went, just trying to avoid everything at all costs.
That is so smart.
Yeah, because I kept getting these infections, and I was like, I have no idea how much that's going to be if I have to go to a dentist out there. So I literally just got everything sorted. I got a prescription, whatever I had for prescription. I used to get like a year worth of that as well. Because like, there's no way I go to the doctor. I think I went with my friend broke his arm, and he was like, I was like, I mean, he was like skateboarding, and we're like, gotta call an ambulance. And he was like, no, you don't call an ambulance. Like, just don't. That's like $1,500 or something. So he was actually picked up by this random woman who drove him across the hill to another hospital that was cheaper. It was, for me, it was insane. He was sat with a broken arm for an hour and a half. It's crazy.
It is absolutely insane. I remember falling off my bike. Like I bike. I love to bike, and I hit something in the road, and just literally flew, like what you see in the movies, just flew over the handlebars and skipped like a rock on the pavement. And I also did the same thing where I was just like, I'm not calling anything, and I like dragged my busted bike and called somebody to come pick me up, and I'm just like bleeding everywhere. And they were like, do you want to go to, I think I did wind up going to like the ER, but like, I was like, I had to call my insurance first to be like, hey, there's blood everywhere. will you guys fix me?
Will you still cover it?
Yeah. like if I'm already bleeding, do you guys cover that or no? Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts.
My friend got her. I didn't know this, and this is fucked up. So if another place calls an ambulance on your behalf, even if you don't request it, you still get charged for it.
No way.
Yep.
Wow.
And I was like, she was getting her hair done, and the woman who did it, I don't know, like burnt the top of her head, and my friend passed out, and then she like they called an ambulance when she passed out. So as soon as she like dropped to the floor, they're like, fuck, we killed her. And so they called an ambulance, and then the ambulance got there, and she was like, I'm not getting on the ambulance. Same thing, like no insurance thing. And she's like, but you did like burn the top of my head, so what the fuck? And then later they sent her a bill for the ambulance, and they were like, yeah, we called an ambulance for you. And she was like, so like I didn't get in it or on it. Yeah,
so crazy.
It was like $1,100.
It is mental. Like, that's one of the things you don't realize when you've lived over here for quite a while and you come over. It's like, because you think about it when you go on holiday or whatever, you hopefully not in that position where you have to think about like healthcare. What happens if you're actually in an emergency? I don't know. It's just it
was shocking to me that like when I started traveling to do stand-up that like you can't go to like I thought my healthcare was covered everywhere at the time, and I remember being like, yay, because I was like, I started doing stand-up when I was like 20, and I would just like go out on the road or whatever, and then I didn't realize that like you can't just go randomly. Like that hotel and the hospital in Michigan might not cover your insurance or whatever it is if you're not feeling good. And I was like, that is frightening.
Right, like my mate literally had to fly back to North Carolina to get surgery.
Oh my god!
And that was with the arm as well. So not only had he had to sit for 2 hours in a car to get to a cheap hospital, he also had to fly to like North Carolina to get his arm fixed.
Exactly.
It's like mind blowing.
And it's amazing because they're like, why isn't anybody happy here? And it's like, because we're all hurting apparently and hiding whatever it is that's wrong with us like 24/7.
So
are you guys in New York or where?
New York and New Jersey.
So New York, New Jersey.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay.
Can't you see the sadness in my eyes that I'm from New Jersey? There's a deadness to them from living so close to shore trash. Have you ever been to New Jersey?
No. I've been New York multiple times. But,
oh, nice. That's awesome.
I think I had a meeting scheduled once out there for some reason. Never happened. I've been to just like literally done the East Coast and the West, like the normal touring spots, and then obviously when I was over there, I was in LA, which is like it's like its own little thing.
I lived in LA for 2 years, and it was I never thought I could be culture shocked, but it was kind of like that. Because I felt like I was in a simulation. Like I used to play The Sims when I was a kid, and I was like, is anybody real out here? Like what? Like just touching random faces.
I started actually towards the end because you hop into an Uber and people could hear that I have an accent, so they would always ask about where you're from, and that's straight away. And you'd be mistake like the first few times I'd be honest and I'd be like, I'm a musician, I'm out here to work, record, whatever. And that would just snowball into like the Uber driver is also creative, he's making beats, he wants to collaborate, that whole thing. And then you're like, end up with a bit, which, lovely. But it was just so much of it. Everywhere you go, there's somebody who like kind of wants to see what they can get out of you. In a way, because everybody's there to kind of do themselves rather than, I don't know, I've just never really met anyone who was there in a bar who was like, oh, I'm just a nurse, I work in a hospital. Like I never came across those people. So I don't know, I always just felt like it was a lot of just a lot of creatives, which is again nice, but it gets to a point where it's a little bit much. I usually like towards the end I would actually just come up with something. I'd say I'm I'm working with something else, I'm somebody else, or like just say something boring, because then people, at least they would like sometimes, you know, you meet somebody in a bar and you kind of just don't want to have this conversation go on about like music. You might have had a shitty day, you know, trying to write something. You don't actually feel like a musician in the evening. And you're just like, I don't want to talk about my career because it feels like it's failing. So I can just like talk about something else. So yeah.
Now I need to know what your go-to lie was. Like, what was your go-to fake job in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I was very young. I was way too young to be on my own in LA. I think I was just, you know, this little blonde person with a Scandi accent. And I just say, like, I think for one time I said I was a student, and then I would actually say that I was there to conduct a research.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah, I was doing the research thing. I would say that I was researching different things, which in itself could, you know, actually go into a more interesting conversation. So depending on who I met and whether how much I wanted to talk to that person, I would just launch into different research every time, you know.
Wow.
If it was like some really seedy person, it might have been like, you know, research on female behavior or male behavior or something like that, whatever, you know, the sex of the opposite person was. So
that's pretty great.
I mean, it honestly worked though. It just got everybody to either just round off the conversation or just keep going, but in a more interesting way than just like, oh, what are you working on now? And you know, what are you doing? What label are you signed to? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The research thing is not. I love how like some people go out to LA to pay for an improv class, and you were like, I'm just gonna do it live and at bars.
I mean, it works though. It really works, and it's just that thing. Somebody just told me that once, that you don't actually have to tell people everything, and you don't have to share about yourself all the time. And I think especially in LA, that was a thing where, you know, you come in as a new person, and you're just, after a while, you get tired about talking about yourself or what you're doing, what your project is. Which sounds very like, I don't know, wasn't like I had lots of people asking me what was that, but it's just when you go into these new social settings and you meet people and they're like, oh, who's this new person? And after a while it's just like, towards the end I had a pretty shitty time out there with the music as well, and I didn't really feel like, you know, diving into that every time.
I'm right there with you.
You're being like just triggered in a bar, and you're like, I don't want to be that.
Absolutely, because if you're in a bar out there, you're not there to network as it is anyway. You're like, I really just want to drink and escape whatever pressures LA puts. Because that's another thing too, is when you're out in LA, you feel like you need to validate why you're there. So of course, when somebody asks you, you're like, oh, I have a purpose, and they're like, yeah, me too, Gat. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we've all got purpose. I don't know if it was the same way for you, but I was like, I already had a lot of stand up under my belt when I went out there. And so I decided to move there because I was originally just going out there because I had a bunch of network meetings. So I did this thing where I was like, fuck it, I'll just move there. And I literally left. I picked up, I grabbed all my shit. I left a bunch of stuff at my roommates and at my parents, and then was like, I'm just going to move to LA. And I did. And then once all the network meetings and stuff kind of like slowed down and like whatever it was, I was like, oh my God, I moved to Los Angeles and I have no friends and I have no job. and it was just fucking awful. And it is like working in like a giant office because everybody's on 24/7.
Yeah, they're just on all the time. 2 a.m. in a bar, in a club, whatever, people are still like networking, and that is really hard to get your head around.
And they all look really good.
A small place. Oh, they're all models. Like they're all models. I was seeing a person out there for a while. Again, I'm like, what, 20 something, and I actually, you realize it's like on a different level.
Well, I think were you out there because I know I don't when you were in Kid Wave, you were which by the way I love, by the way. I think I found that I moved one of my closest friends, and she also tours with me all the time. She introduced me to your band. We love music, so we're always like swapping music back and forth and making playlists when we go out on the road to do stand up and stuff. So I moved to LA in like 2015. And then
around the time we were just put out the album, I think.
Yeah, and it was the perfect time because we were talking about how like, and I love singles, by the way. Like I like when people put out like music singles and stuff like that too. But we were just kind of talking about how like I was like, yeah, I haven't really heard like I haven't been able to listen to an album like straight through in a while. I feel like nobody's making albums. And then she was like, oh, hold on a second. Have you heard of Kid Wave yet? And I was like, no. And that whole album was so from beginning to end, loved it. Must have listened to it on repeat like when I was sad, like all the time. Great album.
Oh, thanks. It's so weird that because like I honestly don't feel like it was such a small project. In you know, it's still quite a small band. It's quite niche. Here in the UK, it was obviously on a quite like small label, like an indie label, who had like absolutely quite a bit of an tastemaker label, but it never felt like this thing that people had actually heard of. And we kind of just did that. You know, I got signed when I was in my teens. And it just kind of like happened very quickly, and then put out the album, and you know, it all happened very quickly, and a lot of it happened within like 3 years.
Wow.
So, and now I'm looking back on it a little bit, and I'm always like, well, it's not a big, you know, it was never a big band, but we did, you know, we did some good touring and put out that album, and now I'm quite happy about the fact that it just became one record, not that we didn't drag it out. Because there was, for a while, there was a bit of a talk about whether we continue, maybe we'll do another album. But you can kind of feel when the energy's going in one way. And I was just like, I was terrified of having, you know, not having that experience on a second album. And then we all kind of went separate ways anyway, doing our different projects. I was out in LA writing, and the other guys, you know, have their own projects back home. So it kind of just happened that way. And now I'm pretty happy about it. But back then it was definitely that, like, do we go ahead? Do we not? What do we do? But looking back, I think it was definitely the right decision. But yeah, it's still such a small little band. So I don't know how she heard of it. Like,
oh yeah, it's so great though, and I've shared it like with all my friends and stuff like that, and they love it too. And that was the other thing too, is I remember reading about you guys because, like, you know, whenever I don't know if you're the same way, but if I like an artist or I like a band, I just try to like find articles, like whatever. And it was one of those things where I don't know if you're the same way, but like, so I found out, you know, you were 18 years old. And you were just crushing it in this band, and you were kind of doing your own thing. And I'm like, oh my God, she's such a badass. And then I was like, oh, and she's really talented too. And then I was like, God, I fucking suck. When I was 18, I wasn't doing any of that shit.
But I feel that way when I look at 18-year-olds now, and I'm not even old, but I look at them now, and I'm just like, oh my God, what have I done? But I remember I think it was right around, I mean, I'd already like played arenas and put out an album. I had all that before. And you know, it's different when you're like, you are like a pop artist and you get signed as a teenager and you do it via a major label. That route's a bit different because you have a full team around you, whereas we did it completely on our own, and also had that coming on my own from Sweden. So I think I was very much just doing it on my own. And because it happened so suddenly, like when I was 23, I lived in like 4 different countries. I toured, I put out a record, I played arenas. So much had happened. And then like when I hit right when that like kind of just, I was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. It was like this massive like anticlimax of like, what do I do now? I had no identity because, you know, you've been doing that, you know, I was the girl from Kid Wave from the age of whatever I started it. So it was definitely a bit of oh shit, I've got a lot of growing up to do. That other people probably went to uni, did all those things. But
do you find, because do you think there's a balance between like how much you want to do on your own and left to your own devices when you're creating and writing music to having that team around you to support you? Like how much input do you like from outside sources when you're creating, and because you do need a team, like you do need people to do certain things, but how much do you like personally between the two?
When it comes to writing, I like to write on my own, or as long as it's a person that I feel gets what I want to do. It's just a chemistry thing. It's like, you know, having a friend that you get along with. So it just needs to be somebody that you really click with, you know, style-wise as well. And in that instance, I have done I started doing co-writes just on the back of LA, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I didn't enjoy it, but that was not because of the other person, was still very talented. It was just that we didn't mesh creatively.
Right.
So that is really what it comes down to. Same with the team. It's taken me ages to find the manager that I have now. He's an amazing person. And he's so lovely. But I think every artist will tell you they will go through so many meetings and so many managers, or, having all these label conversations. It's just an ongoing thing. And until you find that team or that person that you click with, which is worth waiting for and holding out for, I reckon.
Absolutely.
Like 100%. But I think until you have that, you might as well do as much as you can on your own, because you're in a place of power. Because if you give away a little bit too much, you end up probably wasting a lot of time waiting on other people's schedules, and that's something that I still battle with a little bit. Just the level of, I'm the kind of person, if I have an idea, if I have something I want to do, I want to get going straight away. I don't really want to wait around too much. So that is what I'm struggling with a lot, is probably just that other people are in a different schedule. Like, this is my main project. This is all I care about. But the people have, like, your manager will have other acts to look after as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
That is so true. And I always question myself when I have to, like, constantly remind myself, because I don't know what it is about my brain where, like, if I have an idea, same way what you just said is like, I need to get it done and I need to get it out now. And I would much prefer if everybody was free and available to go, let's bang this out in 8 hours and let's really troubleshoot. But it never, ever happens that way. And I don't know if it's something that do you find yourself able to control? Like, do you lose interest if you don't do it right away? Or do you feel like you're losing time? And what's the feeling?
I mean, it really just depends. I wouldn't say I don't lose interest when it comes to anything music wise, just because that is, like, really my big passion.
Yeah.
But I do get frustrated if there's a bit of a hold up, I guess, or mainly if it's, you send something off and somebody might take weeks to get back to you, which can happen, because, like, I get, for me, I'm always, like, online with my own music, but you got people who work, like, in the music industry who are actually on a 9-to-5 job. So they will have their annual leave, for example, and then that's 2 weeks that you just send off that, the new songs or whatever. And it's like, all right, not back until, like, 15th of June or whatever. And then you're like, oh God. I was so excited to get some feedback on this right this very minute, but, you just can't.
Oh yeah. The feedback thing is like that's another element of it too, is where you're like, I made this to somebody. And then the crazy thing is like, my brain will be like, oh, they did watch it or they did listen to it and they don't know how to tell me they hate it. So you're just like, oh God. But really, they're just busy.
Yeah, they're just busy. And I think that is where, like, the difference between maybe the creator and, like, because it's your heart project and you're so involved. But yeah, they have, like, families and they have their own projects, maybe, even, and they talk.
And how dare they?
How dare, the audacity.
Don't they know we're working?
I agree. I mean, it's frustrating, but, I guess they're gonna live as well, right?
Yeah. How are you at, like, once you're done with something, do you focus too much? Like, do you move on to the next thing right away, or are you, like, constantly going back and tweet? Oh, you do? Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm very much, I think, a bigger picture person rather than, like, I don't dwell on tiny details. Like, I just don't have the mental capacity for that. I think it's very much like, I write a song, it will be pretty rough around the edges, the demo. That's why I like producing stuff, but I'm not a producer in the sense that I can sit with a beat and dissect it and go over it for hours, or just download different samples from Splice. That is a different kind of person that does that, which I appreciate. That's an amazing ability to have.
Yes.
My attention span is not enough for that. I'd rather do anything else than editing drum beats. So I want to write a song, I want to get an idea out, I want to get some feedback on it, I feel really excited about it, I can already hear where it's going in my head, but actually having to sit and fiddle around with all the small bits, no.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Is this on Twitch?
Yeah,
this is on Twitch.
We do Twitch constantly. Do you go on Twitch?
No, but I really want to, I want to get big on Twitch.
Oh, you should.
I don't have an account or anything, but it's my goal to.
What did you like live stream during the pandemic at all, or like
No,
do your
I
music?
wasn't in that stage yet. I think during the pandemic, I was still like just getting my stuff together and
nice
writing. I wasn't doing. I wish I'd gone on like that would have been a great time to get like famous on TikTok or something. But
oh my god, I know.
I missed out like so many others. I missed out on that opportunity.
I'm always at the fucking back end of it. Makes me sound so old, but like whatever social media thing that's out there, I swear to God, I always come in way too late to the party. Like,
I'm desperately trying to figure out what the next thing is, like what the next, so I can be there on time this time.
Yep.
But
ahead of the curve.
I don't know who to ask. I don't have any leads. Like no idea.
I'm,
Twitch, but I think I'm a bit late to that as well now, probably.
Yeah, I wish I'd played. I mean, I play so many video games, like with my friends and shit like that. I really, really wish I had just gone live on Twitch and played video games. And yeah, but I didn't.
You get like paid and shit, right?
You can get paid, subscriber base. If you have a decent subscriber base, you can monetize it once you get to what is it, 100?
Well, there's 4 metrics for it, and it's funny because we met because my business is more like gambling and gaming and stuff like that. So when the pandemic hit, I just started to gamble on Twitch because it was some place for my followers to watch, and we would chat and then staying in touch with with everybody that you used to stay in touch with. Next thing you know, I have followers from like Amsterdam and the UK, and they're sending money as like to keep it going. So random, right?
Yeah,
but so good though, right?
It was, but I was like, I can't keep gambling constantly. So then we met some incredible comedians like John and his friends, and then we started to launch these type of shows, which were a little bit more, sustainable because you don't take the swings of the losses. But yeah,
that's the fun story. The truth is, I owe Tom money, and he's kept me in this box.
It's only because he fits.
Yeah, I am pocket size. If we ever meet in person, I'm not. I'm short. This is pick this up at a Build-A-Bear. It's nice. But yeah, so when you were doing, so you did this, the California Dreamin' and the other songs during the pandemic, like you were writing and working on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I kind of getting everything ready. Like I said, I've got so many songs now. We're just in that stage where we're trying to find a good home for it. But yeah, we have a lot of songs, a lot of tunes that I've literally been sat with for a few years now. So very much ready to get the ball rolling. Obviously, because of the pandemic, I think it was quite a wise decision to not go in too hard, with the live industry and everything being down. And this year, I guess, is also quite a weird one in the music industry because it's the first year back after the pandemic. So it's so crowded out there right now. It's very saturated and everybody's doing everything right now. Like everybody's had their big comeback. And I see all these big bands, like massive bands having their comeback tours. And I'm just like, just maybe wait to let somebody else. Why did you choose this year of all years? Like just maybe wait a little bit.
I know.
But
we went deep into all this nostalgia stuff especially during the pandemic. I mean, I feel like America especially was already kind of in that mode a little bit with like 80s and 90s stuff, and then the pandemic hit and everyone was just losing their minds over like all these and like even bands from like the 70s are like, we're back, and I'm like, you have one song.
right and like suddenly they're doing like these one-off like stadium dates, and I'm just like, but maybe just leave the space for somebody else right now. Like I don't know, I mean, I saw one of those like big legacy acts doing like their big comeback tour, and it's one of those bands who had like sworn that they would never do that, and I was like, you chose this year of all the years when the competition on the live front, like people have so much to choose from.
I know. And the crazy thing is too, is I don't know if you've noticed this with bands, but like with comedians, like I've seen them like double up. So it's like, all these people who could sell out a stadium on their own are like, now it's like Chappelle and Chris Rock are going out together. And I'm like, do you need to?
Yeah, right. Like,
that
you got
about?
money. Why don't you just wait for a year? Like, let somebody who's in desperate need of touring just get that cash right now. I also saw some acts who do that. Like, they just take over a venue for like 10 days consecutively instead of like getting one arena date in. They're doing like 10 days at like Brixton Academy or something, and that's just so silly as well. Like, just why would you do that?
I know. I completely agree. It's really hard to like, because even when I started, like, so for like comedians, I don't know if it's the same for bands, but like when I started doing comedy, there was a lot of people who were like left over from the past generation. This is so shitty. I don't know if I'm saying it like this, but like they were kind of left over where, you know, not to their own fault, but like they didn't get a sitcom, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is that they were handing comedians at the end of the 80s and early 90s. So they were just circling the comedy club circuit and headlining, and it was really hard to move up because you'd be like, yeah, if you're gonna have the same guy there like every few months, of course you're not gonna, you know, and you know he's a solid act. There's no room for new people. So and I don't know, is it the same way with music too?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't really like spent too much time, like, because I'm not actively playing live right now. So I guess in a way I'm not too affected by it. But I don't know, I just keep seeing all these posters on the tube for these massive legacy acts suddenly doing a comeback tour. And to me, from a marketing perspective, it feels like maybe this year is a bit of a tough, you know, market with everybody, you know, everybody doing. There's so many events that have been postponed that are happening in 2021. Yeah, and I guess people are also ready for it in a different way. But there's only so much live music and like stuff you can go and watch, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, is there like anybody in particular that you'd love to collaborate with that you haven't yet, or that you're like kind of eyeing up?
Oh, I mean, there's so many people. I don't know. I mean, if I'm ever at a stage where, you know, I have that kind of ability to go to an artist, like, and have my team, you know, reach out to their team or whatever.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, obviously so many artists that I would definitely love to collaborate with. I think that's what this kind of, you know, I'm going a bit more into like the world of pop, which I've always loved and is kind of what I always wanted to do. And it allows, in a way, for a bit more like freedom to cross over to different genres and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, there's so many artists. Maybe some kind of like, I don't know, who did I see the other day who did a really good crossover thing? Oh, I think it was actually, I just listened to this track. That's actually 10 years old now, I think. But Robin put out an amazing song with Snoop Dogg.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was really great.
So good. So good. Yeah, I'd love to do that.
See, that's the thing. I love collaborations, man. I'm always curious how they even start. Like, I feel like, do you guys approach each other, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
honestly, just DM each other on Instagram. That's what I've heard.
Oh, that's great.
Artists do.
That's very cool.
Because it's easier. Sometimes I think it's easier for artists to just make that connection right away. I take it their social platforms would be big enough for them to actually, somebody would open, they would actually look at the DM if it came from, you know, I don't know.
Right.
Whereas, I don't know, if I send it, it probably not be
No, you can't. You got to take the shot.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try.
If there's anybody you need, let John know. He's got a blue check mark.
He's got the blue tick.
I will happily message anyone on your behalf.
Thank you. I will bear that in mind.
Yeah.
Just a little list of people that you can just like DM.
And you have it live and recorded, so you can hold me to it. You can be like, you fucking
right,
yeah. Yeah, you told us.
Good. And you know, I'll just be like, when somebody goes like, oh, this weird guy just contacted me, I'll be like, oh, I have no idea who that is. No idea.
Crazy fan.
I guess, you know, I'd be like, maybe his account got hacked or something like
that. Did he ask you if you want to buy Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's when you know it's not me or an NFT. I'm like, hey, do you want to get in on this? Whatever makes money quicker. Yeah. Could you imagine if I was like, that was it? It was like some random comedian was trying to pair up his favorite music. I'm like, guys should play date. You guys should hang out. And they're like, what the fuck is wrong with him?
It would be quite. I mean, it would be kind of sweet, to be honest. Though I would. I mean, hey, any way goes these days. I think you just gotta. If it works, it works.
Absolutely agree.
I'm not precious. I'm not precious anymore. Like I'm past that. Like I'm past doing it the cool way. Whatever works.
And you know what this crazy thing is like that kind of shit holds you back anyway. Like I feel like when I was younger, like all the stuff I thought you shouldn't do or say or whatever, I find that it's totally like even to get guests on here, like we had Ed Asner on, obviously, and I always go to say before he passed away, but no one thinks I'm digging up his grave to bring him back. I don't know why, I don't know how to say it, but I'm like, so but Ed Asner came on or whatever, and for me to do it, my manager got me his number and I just called him on the phone and I'm like, I should not be calling. In my head, I was like, this is weird as shit, but I did it and he was totally cool. And we spoke like 5 times and it was great.
Yeah. I honestly think people respect you more, for actually having that personal, if you reach out on your own, I just, if not in every case, but I can imagine in a lot of cases it will actually work. It will get you the gig rather than, if you're team reaches out. I mean, obviously the way Bill did it was amazing as well. It worked, but
we have a good system most of the time when he's reaching out, because like sometimes we'll just kind of tag team where like if he reaches out to somebody and maybe they're like, kind of like what is going on or whatever, then I'll do it personally, and then it's like a double thing, and then they're like, oh, okay, but then
look them up on like their old social media pages and like
and I'm like,
shout out to Bill to peek behind the curtain.
Shout out Bill.
On the production.
You never know.
I'm still so amazed that he found me. Like that's
So am I, because I really wasn't. I was kind of like, because I'm not kidding. Like I really do like, not that I would kid about it, but like I really did love the Kid Wave album. I don't know why I say shit sometimes.
I don't know why you say that type of stuff either.
I don't know. I'm not kidding. And they're like, first of all, didn't think you were, but also now a little skeptical.
What the hell, John?
I know, it's weird. But no, it's fucked up. But yeah, I was like, if you could find, every now and again I would just kind of re-up it and be like, hey, any luck? Can you find this person? So yeah, it was great.
Yeah. I mean, I was, I'm very impressed.
Yeah. The next, if you don't answer that email, the next step, he's ringing your bell.
I genuinely thought he got the wrong person because he didn't mention what it was for or the project. So it just said, where can I send? It said something like, do you have an email so I can send an interview request? And I was like, somebody's got the wrong person. Like my sister is a pretty, like has her own music project in Sweden, which is doing really well. And sometimes people confuse us, which happens quite a lot. So my first thought wasn't like, oh great, somebody's trying to lock me down for an interview. It was more like somebody's gotten the wrong person.
Oh my god.
Good on him. He was persistent. It paid off.
Yes.
Yep, that's what we like about him.
Yeah.
What is your writing process like? Because I'm always curious. Is it something that do you hear the music first in your head? Do you write instrumentally first and then lyrically, or is it lyrically first and then?
I normally. So the way I like to work is to put some kind of mood or vibe down. So normally just like a chord progression, really simple, and with some kind of like nice warm pad sound or anything that kind of gets me in like the world I want to be in, and then I use that as a kind of my kind of springboard to go from there. But yeah, no, definitely the chords first. And it's quite important that they have a bit of a vibe, almost like, I can imagine that I'm a quite visual person, but I can imagine that if you are, it's almost like you're setting a bit of a mood. You want to have that, like the room, and then you put stuff in the room, which would be the lyrics and the melodies and stuff. So that's how I imagine it.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah. So normally if I work with others, we're literally just very simple, because you don't want to go too much, because that can also limit you writing wise. But something very simple, but that has some kind of emotion that you can kind of tap into. And like honestly, today it's so easy. You just plug into Logic, whatever. Like you have so many synths or piano sounds at your disposal. So you just do 4 chords, and then there we go. That's how I do it, at least. And that's kind of how I've done it. How I done it from the start. There are obviously different ways of, I know some people start with lyrics. I guess it would make sense to start with lyrics if you are the kind of writer that has an idea, a lyrical idea that just comes to you, and then you want to translate that, you would start with the lyric. But for me, it normally works the other way around.
Yeah.
I would say 90% of the time.
Yeah,
Nice.
It's funny. John asked the question a lot, and we get so many different answers.
Right,
like,
I
from
can
so many
imagine.
different
Oh,
artists.
I mean, it's so individual. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, how do you work when you do your, like, when you write? Do you normally just like jot down as you go during the days, and then I'm gonna, come back to this later on?
Yeah. When I first started doing stand up, I really was trying to be like, I was trying to figure out what my process was kind of like, because I thought, you hear from other comedians who are really successful or whatever, and they're like, you got to sit down and write your material out, and that's fine. And I would try to do that in the very beginning, and I found that I wasn't like, okay, from 2 to 4, I'm going to sit down and write, jokes and try to figure that out. I was much more of a, like, carry a notepad with you, and when you're experiencing stuff throughout the day, oh my God, I just thought of a great punchline, or I just thought of a great premise. And then later I found out that I like to go back and look at everything, and whatever is still kind of funny to me, then I'm like, all right, I'm going to try this, this, and this on stage. And then I would write it, like, cause I'm very, I like to be kind of very in the moment and spontaneous, like when I'm on stage. So it has to come out, it has to go through a process and come out a certain way when I'm in the moment.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering if you were testing it on people as well as you go.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just super curious. I've never met a comedian, I think.
So I try to do it, like, so it is kind of funny. Like I will, like, I try to do it less and less, because I really don't, I feel bad when I'm like with friends and they're like, is that a bit? And I'm like, fuck, like, I don't want to be that guy. But yeah, there's certain stuff like I'll try to naturally work stuff into a conversation. But for the most part, like, I just, now I'll be like, hey, look, I've got this idea. Can I run this by you? And then I'll try to, like, set it up in a way. But when I was younger, I would totally, they were like, are you testing material right now? Or are you just being like, you're just being natural? I'm like, if you can't tell, it's working. But yeah, I would do that. Now I just do it, like, yeah.
Do you have to ask for, like, if you pull something from real life, do you have to ask them for consent before you perform it?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Yeah, it depends on exactly what it is. So, like, if I'm with somebody and they say something funny, I, like, if they're another comedian, like, obviously it's like always that contentious thing where you're like, is that yours or mine? Did you come up with that, or did I? And then you're like, well, whoever uses it on TV first, I guess. But yeah, with friends and stuff like that, sometimes I'm like, oh, that's really funny. Just as a courteous, I'll be like, do you mind if I, like, work with that and make it kind of funnier and do whatever? But like real world situations, yeah, I very rarely try to take something from somebody else's life that isn't, you know what I mean? Because I don't know, some stuff is personal, and I don't want people to find out later that I'm talking about them. But there's a way to disguise shit. Like, sometimes something will happen, and I'll just make it like it happened to me, and I'll, like, try to personalize it a little bit more.
Right. Yeah.
But that's a good question, because when I was younger, I used to worry about that a lot. I'll tell you what I did get in trouble with. I would openly talk about family shit when I was younger on stage. Like, I didn't give a fuck. And my dad's family, like, I'm from Brooklyn, and they were very much like, you don't talk about the family on stage. And I was like, am I gonna get murdered? Like, like what the fuck is that about? So yeah, then I learned pretty quickly then too that people get upset about that kind of shit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, because I guess it's a completely different thing in a way that you are, because it's also meant to be funny. And quite often, you turn even, like, tragic things around to be funny. At least that's how I feel. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, that is obviously a thing that would come up, I guess, in the process.
Isn't that a thing where they say tragedy in time equals comedy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so funny. Like, one of my favorite things, right now, like, whenever I'm meeting, especially, like, so, like, right during the pandemic, my parents got divorced, and the way it happened wasn't funny at the time, but it's quite funny to look back on.
Right.
Because it was, like, such bad timing. They couldn't have timed it worse if they tried, obviously. But it's one of those things now when I go and meet people and they're like, you know, oh, you know, they're asking me about my family or whatever, and I say, you know, my parents are divorced, and they'll go, oh, you know, mine are as well, and then we can, you know, kind of just like bond a bit over the, you know, the common trauma. But yeah, basically they got divorced right in the like week 2 of the pandemic, not because of the pandemic,
right? Yeah,
but it was just very unfortunate that I was living in a 12 square meter bedroom at the time in London, and I couldn't stay there. And there were lockdown rumors. So I was like, I'm going to have to go home.
Oh my God.
You can see where this is going. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go home. And like literally they sat us down and they, you know, they broke the news about the divorce. But the problem was that England went into lockdown and then I was stuck with them. And they were going to separate into 2 different houses. But they couldn't do that either because of logistics and lockdown. So not only was I there and I couldn't see my friends, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go anywhere. It was like a bad sitcom for 6 weeks. I was stuck. And then the first flight, I could go back to London. I got it but it wasn't a direct flight. I even went through Holland. And I had to be like really hush about it because, you know, flying during the pandemic. But there was no way I was, you know, I mean, they're fine. They're very like both very mature and great people. So they were doing fine, but you know, obviously an intense situation.
That's hilarious though. That's like
it is yeah. And they, you know, it's also the way, I mean, bless my mom, but they broke the news over Easter dinner, like thinking that this would be like a good like a good occasion to do this, right? And right in between the main course and the dessert. And my yeah, my mom was just like, they just delivered it because obviously they've been sat with this for a while, so for them it's not news. And like we're, you know, I'm an adult and my sisters are adults as well, but it still comes as a bit of a shock, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, the way it was literally in between those courses, and my mom was just like, just went on to this dessert as if nothing had happened.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, oh, it was just like,
I got a question.
Bad comedy. Yeah, go.
Did anybody eat cake like after they brought out the dessert? No, just that there, right?
Honestly, I think we were just like, you know what? I need to just like process this.
Digest.
Yeah. It is funny when people are
process it at the dinner table. You know, it was that weird. I think they just thought that, you know, I don't know what they thought.
well, I was gonna say it's funny because to them, they had already processed it. They were done with it. So they were just delivering the news in between bites, you know. And then I've been in those situations where somebody drops a bombshell on you and they're so already okay with it that they just continue on their day. You know what I mean?
It reminds me of Step Brothers. You ever see Step Brothers where they
I mean, this is what I've said the whole time, and this is why I love this story. Whenever I meet somebody who's like having a shit time, or you know, there's so many people like, oh, my pandemic was great. You know, I started a new company. I did all this. I'm there to take it back a notch if they want to. I thought some people just need to, you know, give you, you know, I'm there for the perspective.
Yeah. It was. I'll tell you one thing. I ended a relationship before the pandemic started, so that was like, which was, I feel like poor judgment because like once the pandemic started, I was like, hey, do you want to be in each other's circles? And it was like probably not a good idea. But I was like, oh fuck. But it was kind of I enjoyed watching my friends in their relationships. This is fucked up. But like kind of like which ones were gonna, because it was a game after a while. You were like, oh, I had a feeling they hated each other, but they couldn't get out of it, and now they can. And then but it was weird watching everybody kind of try to struggle and deal with that kind of stuff where they were like, once you were faced with the fact that you could not leave them at any point in time, you were like, wow, this is make or break.
It was hard. It was hard.
Yeah. It amplified everything. So if you were in a good space, it was that much better. If you're in a bad space, it's that much worse.
So much worse.
Yeah. Especially with yourself. If you're in a bad space with yourself and then you're alone with yourself for a long time, you were like, man, do I hate me?
Oh, you have way too much time to think about things. Way too much time. It was
absolutely.
It was not the vibe. But I think, you know, it's interesting how everybody seems to have had such a different experience during lockdown. I have friends who, for them, lockdown was one of the most, needed breaks and creative times of their lives. And, they took up all, a lot of people took up exercise and healthy eating, and I was not doing that.
Mine went in waves where in the very beginning, I was very I guess either because I didn't think it was going to last very long or whatever, but I was like, this is fine by me. I was like, I don't have to worry about anything. It was like a snow day where I was just like, oh, school's closed and there's nothing I can do about it. So,
right.
And then I was good and I was exercising and biking and kind of talking to people I hadn't talked to in a long time. And then the winter hit and I was like, I'm going to eat everything in this fucking house. And I'm gonna, it was got really weird and bad, and then slowly, started to come out of that too and stuff, and it was just awkward.
Yeah, I mean, it was constant back and forth for a while. I mean, even last year it was just I don't know. Did you guys have multiple lockdowns as well? I think we did in and out of lockdown.
Yeah, waves.
Yeah. And it was always when I booked shows. Every time we thought we were coming out of it, I was like, I'm back, baby. And then I would book a series of shows and they would be like, new strain, and then everything would shut down again.
Right. I was so glad that I hadn't, I had no shows booked. I think that was a good thing. I was so glad that I did not start to put out the whole process of putting out music before the pandemic, because I think that would have been so hard. I mean, it's hard as it is now, but I think just lowering the bar so much and kind of just we're just going to start slowly. It's a climb, just some social media stuff, a few songs, just self-releasing, rather than kind of making that okay, I'm launching. That would have, been super hard just to cope with, I think, during the pandemic, to feel oh, well, I've just launched this, but now I can't actually do anything.
Yeah.
And you're launching from the living room. That's it.
Yeah. How was that process? How was the process of making it on, making that stuff and producing it on your own, getting those singles out?
So yeah, I did. I mean, I just do it at home. I now share a studio with two guys, so I have a studio really close to where I live, which is amazing. But no, back then, I was just doing it from my room, and then because I don't have the setup to actually do a proper recording, it was a bit of a mix actually. I'd recorded some bits. We had a friend of mine called Gethin, who's an amazing producer, do from his studio. So he would add certain bits, and he would also take my stems, my sound files, and he would kind of work with them, tweak them. Like I said, I'm not very good. I don't love editing stuff.
Yeah. I know
So he kind of just came in and helped out with that, and he gave it a good mix as well. So that's why it sounds quite shiny and nice. I don't know if I could have gotten it to that point myself. So no, it was still a team effort for sure.
That's cool. Yeah, it sounds great. And that was the thing that I know people had a hard time with, is figuring out the tech stuff or whatever, especially the older the older musicians, stuff like that, were
yeah, I bet.
We were talking to them on here too, and they were just basically I didn't know you could do so much with this phone. And I'm just yes, absolutely. Yeah. They were having a good time.
Teaching them.
I know, yeah, it was really, they were this is amazing, and I was just yep, you can do it all.
Some why because they probably got management or labels. They should just give them a little crash course.
Dude, I wonder sometimes why no one's updating people on stuff, or just even just a rundown of hey, download fucking Rock Band or whatever the hell you have to download, or whatever it is.
You even have GarageBand on your phone. So.
That's what I was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I mean,
did you know you wanted to be a musician right away when you were younger? Did you have any other passions?
Well, I knew it's quite funny, because I didn't know that I wanted to be a musician until I was probably 13. I'm not from a musical family. My family's not musical or creative.
Oh wow.
At all. So how it happened, I actually don't know. Both me and my sister are very kind of creative people.
Nice.
But we, I think honestly, the way I remember it is I woke up one day and that was all I wanted to do. All I wanted to do was just music. Wow. And I've been obsessed with it since. It's been no option, no other option to do anything else. That's what I'm doing. And it's quite relentless, but that's honestly, since I woke up, boom. And it hasn't changed, which is, interesting. And I'm just trying to trust that once I don't feel that kind of drive to do it anymore, then it's time to let go. But there's obviously been times in the last few years when you have a project like I had when I was so young, and then you come off that and you start over. It's a lot trickier, especially what I'm doing now. It's, before it was just like a little band. Now it's a bit different. So it's having to navigate that again, and you kind of like, does this mean that I'm not doing the right thing? Does this mean that it's probably not meant to be? But I'm trying to, like, as long as I feel so passionately about it and I absolutely love doing what I'm doing, then I'll continue doing it.
Yeah. It's a good way to look at it. I think about quitting every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like everybody does, right?
Right, I know. It's so comforting that other artists actually think that way too, though, because you can make yourself feel like you're alone in that, where you're like, I'm a fraud and I probably don't, but everybody gets like that.
Yeah, I mean, I went through that phase of being like, can I even call myself a musician if anyone asks? Like, obviously in LA, I'd already started to introduce myself as a researcher. But like, in real life, I was like, I don't really know. It's a big identity crisis. Like when you're an artist or you're a creative and you're not actively doing it, or you're not presenting yourself as it, in the world. It's having that inherent sense of this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. That's like, it's a real real thing.
And what's weird is for some reason it doesn't matter how long you've done it or how much time you put in. Those feelings are still persistent. Like even during the pandemic, I felt like I fared a little bit better, like than other people who were trying to go back out and perform, where I was like, because for a while I was like, this totally makes sense. It's dangerous to go out and perform. I don't want to kill anybody else. I think it's irresponsible, yada, yada, yada. So I wouldn't do it and I wouldn't book shows. And even if we were coming out of it, I was like, everybody's got to be like the whole thing. Right.
Right.
And then, but then it was like, I would question myself and be like, man, maybe I don't love it as much as I'm supposed to. And because there's guys who are going out during full-blown COVID spikes and they're doing their shows anyway. I mean, maybe it's not for me and yada yada. And then so I like wrestled with that for a bit, where I was like, I don't know. But then I would go back when I got to go back out and do it. It was like a new all over again. It was like this rush of like, oh, this makes sense. And then of course, it'll go through the cycle again where I'm like, oh, I fucking suck. Like it's weird.
The cycle is definitely the best way of describing it. It's like swings, isn't it? Like you're on top of the world, and then the week after you don't have any shows, so you don't have any sessions planned in, and then suddenly you have this huge identity crisis.
Yeah,
it just it's just a recurring kind of thing. And I think the good thing now is that I know that it's a recurring thing. Whereas when you were, when I was even younger, I didn't have that kind of cyclical approach to it. It felt like every time it happened, it was like a huge crisis.
Yes.
Whereas now it's a bit like, okay, I can look at it with a bit more distance, which is quite nice.
Right.
That it still very much, happens. Like the anxiety around it still comes, and I don't think that would ever go away.
Yeah. I was going to say an odd comparison is the same way I would kind of deal because I've had like bouts of depression, like I'm sure like everybody, whatever throughout my life. But when I was younger, I didn't understand it. And then as I got older, I was like, oh, okay, this is just going to happen like randomly. And I think the more I understood, like, oh, okay, I'm having a day or whatever it is, or maybe this week is not a great week. I would just be okay with it, because I would be like, okay, it's a kind of expected, or, not everybody's going to feel great 24/7, and you need to take breaks, and, it's a weird balance.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard for people who don't have that. I have friends who just do normal. Their calling is maybe being like just working, having more of a on paper normal job, and it's hard, to relate, because I keep having that conversation about like, well, you're so lucky that you have this kind of lifestyle.
Yes,
and it's. I am very lucky, but it also comes. I'm also very anxious because of it. And they're just, but I don't have any time to actually see my friends or my family. I don't have any I don't have time. I'm always just tired. So, I mean, I get it. It's,
and that's the thing too, is this is a 24-hour, like there's no, I envy sometimes people who can clock in and out, because
just switch off.
Like everybody does that's not in that profession, right? It's always grass is greener. I feel the same
absolutely way. Well, I mean, I'm sure you've had regular day jobs and stuff like that when you started out too, and I have too. And that's the only thing that like I try to remind myself is how fucking miserable I was doing the 9 to 5. But then every now and again I'm like, God, I wish I could just fucking check in and check out and not think like a maniac 24/7.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I was never mad about being on a 9 to 5. Like when I mean, I haven't had a 9 to 5 in legitimately over 20 years.
Right.
But like when I did it, I would enjoy it because there was never any pressure to me. Like it was never like I need to be on, I need to perform. I was just like, all right, I just got to do this. That's easy. So I would go through it and I would still be doing my performances were more of side gigs. And it didn't feel like that felt pressure on the weekends. And then all of a sudden it turned into like, I almost felt like you were letting go of something so easy to make money. Like I envied the ability to not have to think. Like when you don't have to think, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just being able to come home and feel, I mean, for me, it's more that I always feel like I could do more with my time. That is, you know, that kind of guilt of like switching off and fully switching off when I could, because I'm not on the schedule. So sometimes I go to the studio at 3:00 and I'm there. And, you know, some days you're not going to be as, you know, you're not in a flow, whatever, you're not doing very well. So maybe by 6:00 I'm like, okay, I'm done. And I come home and then I'm just like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm wasting my life. That's how I feel a lot of the time. I'm just wasting my life.
And what's cool in the other aspect of those jobs is there's somebody that tells you you've done a good job and you're done for the day. So you're like,
because you get paycheck as well.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like the literal proof of what you've done is that, you get rewarded. Whereas so much of the stuff that we do is technically for free until you hopefully get checked towards the end of it, or, you know, you're doing something for free because, you know, there's another project that you could hop on after, or it's exposure or stuff like that. So you are technically working, but you don't count it as work. You don't feel like it is work.
Yeah.
And then you add the social media aspect to it too, where you're like, that's a 24-hour,
24/7.
Yeah. And now there's like, you can get paid for doing reels. Like, so I don't know, like, And
how do you do that?
Okay. So I don't, I will tell you.
Do you need a blue tick? Do you need a blue tick?
I don't know. I mean, I actually have to ask more people about this, because I got like about a couple months ago, I got like one of those random like notifications on top of Instagram that was like, make money doing whatever. And I was like, fuck, my account got hacked. You know what I mean? Or like whatever it was. And then, but I did click on it and it was like, if you sign up, you know, you throw in your bank information so they can pay you. And it goes by the month. So every month Instagram comes up with a number of views you need to achieve, or a max view you can achieve to get the max amount of money. And then you're supposed to make reels. And I think the thing is like 2 a day. I don't know what they get out of it. I don't know if they're.
I was going to say, what's the catch? Is there like, do you promote something?
No, they just want you using their service to make reels.
I was going to say, they just want people to make reels right now.
Yes. And I think they might be they might have the right to plug it wherever they want, or maybe use it to even advertise Instagram or whatever it is. But basically, like, you make those reels and I'll say, I mean, so the first time I did it, and I made I made like $180 because I wasn't following it strictly, right? So I was like, oh, I'll make a couple of reels. Though. It is. It's really good.
Yeah.
And I was just, and now I'm like, that's another thing to obsess over, where I'm like, I got to get 2 out a day. And the funny thing is check your Instagram feed, because if you see people putting out crap, like that is, I was like, oh, because I was like, why are like all these random accounts just making these reels? And I'm like,
now.
Yeah. And I'm like, they're like, this is how I put on a sweatshirt in the morning. And I'm like, who the gives a fuck? You know? And then I'm like, oh, if you get, they're just trying to get views.
All right.
Exactly. And I'm like, but yeah. So like, that's another thing that like, I'll be like I'm like, I should be going to bed. And then I'm like scrolling through my phone for videos. I'm like, this cat's cute. It's not even mine. You know, like tossing the cat in there or whatever. But yeah, it's crazy. You should try it though. I mean, I think you should be able to do
I mean,
it.
I have to be honest with you. It hasn't come up on my gram. It might be a blue tick thing.
Okay. It might.
I
That
might not be
it.
on the influencer level yet.
I'm gonna get you there. I'm gonna just you tell me what to share, and I will share it, and then we're just gonna keep boosting your shit. That's what we're gonna do.
Let's just slide into some DMs. Right?
They'll accept you doing it more than me. Trust me. I don't know.
Well, I don't have the blue tick.
You know, that's true. We need to, you know what you should do? You should just take over my account for like a week.
Maybe that is what we should do, actually. Like, just give me the details, and then I will literally just slide in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
You know what's funny? You think I'm kidding? I'm not. I will let you do that. I'm that big a fan. I will absolutely be like, go for it. Yeah.
I would start to harass people, like certain people. And they'd be like, who the fuck is this person? And then like it's undercover. Perfect. And you get the blame for it.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, he's crazy.
Maybe even get like shadow banned or whatever that is,
Oh my god, the shadow ban stuff is so funny. I don't even know if it's true.
I just hear all these influencers going on about the shadow ban thing. I never understood what it is.
I don't understand what it is either. For the most part, I think it's just people who are making good content, and they're like, guys, the government shadow banned me. And I'm like, they could bounce a laser off the moon and destroy you in a set. Like, do you really think if you're like,
Yeah, they're like their reel only got like 5 million views instead of like 10 million views or something. They're like instantly shadow banned. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm like, I wish that'd be great if I can get that many views on something.
Yeah,
but
well, I mean, hopefully now that I'm able to slide in, do the work for you as well. Like if you give, I will have the freedom to.
We'll be the first musician-comedian collaboration.
Yeah, great.
People will be like, "What is? Are they trying to ruin both their careers?"
The first.
Maybe not the first. No, Bobby McFerrin and Robin Williams did a video together. There you go. That's
Paul Simon and Chevy Chase.
And Paul Simon and Chevy Chase.
I mean, it's happened before, right?
Yeah, and it can happen again. We're gonna revive it.
It will happen. It will happen. Will happen.
All you have to do is cover "You Can Call Me Al," and John will dance through the whole video. That would be awesome.
The worst music video ever. The most, not the worst, but the most nothing video that everyone was like hilarious that they even decided to do that. Like, Chevy Chase is
that shit goes viral every day, though.
It does.
I would say that's the way to go. Like, it's all about being authentic. These things. It's not about creating.
I would fucking kill to be in a music video. I'm not even kidding. I would do whatever anybody wanted me to do. Because especially if it's a band or like a song I like, I don't know, make me a chorus.
But what will you do?
I don't know.
Nothing's off limits, is what he's saying.
I will do whatever. I mean, I would love to come up with something and do it. You know what I mean? Like just to be able to work on something like that would be amazing.
Or like direct it. Almost.
Yeah, direct it, be in it. You know what I mean? Or just do whatever.
Should.
Like come up with something. I think I will. Thank you. I think that'd be great.
I genuinely feel like there needs to be more like really funny music videos, like really like properly like scripted as really funny music videos.
That's a great idea.
We've seen all the cool stuff. That's not to say if I got the budget, I would do something really cool, but I would definitely not be like, I really want to get all these like cool neon lights, but let's just make it funny. Like that's not gonna float. But
you just described like the essence of comedy where you're like, if I actually had the money, ditch the comedy. I want to be badass, fucking super sexy and cool. Everyone's like, yeah.
It's not going to sustain my influencer career, though. Unfortunately, I think it is the comedy that will lift it.
Yeah, we could totally do something. Yeah. Do you have those friends who, when you're in public and you're trying to be low key, will introduce you as a musician, and you're like, I really didn't want to talk about this?
Well, they don't do anymore. I don't know. I mean, maybe some of them. I don't know. I've just not since the pandemic. I've not been introduced to anyone. Like I've literally not met. I feel like the few people I meet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was at a wedding recently, and I was super annoyed because I was like, I didn't want to be there anyway. And it's always nice. I could say that after the fact. But I didn't. It was just like, because it's like a bunch of people that like I either hadn't seen in like forever, and I was kind of going to somebody's date and whatever, and And of course, everyone's talking about like, the housing market. And I'm just like, and then, but also at the same time,
anyway.
yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, I don't have any of that. I don't have kids. I don't want kids, but my friend, we'd be like waiting to get a drink, and then they would be like, hey, so what's going on? What do you do? And I would literally say, I'm like, nothing, a little of this, trying to blow it off. And she'd be like, he's a comedian, and they're like, oh my God. And I'm just like, fuck. Like, I don't.
Social pressure of being a comedian. Like, I would just imagine, like, again, you're the first comedian I'm like chatting to, but I can imagine if people do like say that, because if people say introduce me as a musician, they won't be like expect anything of me. They're not going to go like sing some, like
here's a flute,
sing, right?
That doesn't normally happen.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that people will look at you and have some kind of preconceived notion about you being funny or saying funny things.
Yeah.
Or, I can just imagine the amount of drunk people who just go like, crack a joke or something. Like
oh my God. The drunk people, they tell you jokes. They love to tell you jokes.
They love, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then they want you to tell a joke too. And they want to go back. And I'm not really like, I have some street jokes that I know that I like, but I'm not like a street joke guy where I'm just like constantly throwing it out there or whatever. Yeah. Or like, sometimes I'll meet people who like will blow me off. I think this is kind of funny. Well, they'll like not talk to me at all. And then they'll find that I'm a comedian. And then suddenly, even if I'm like, hello, they're like, and I'm just like, oh God, don't do that either. Please. Like,
that's so weird.
It is so awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
where
my
I'm
God.
just like, oh wow, you didn't give a shit 2 seconds ago.
Wow.
No, it's awkward. I met this girl recently. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if you do this when you meet somebody, but like we don't know each other's social media. I have like, I think she kind of like, I maybe mentioned that I do stand up. We met at like a movie premiere. And then I was just like, I know she's in advertising. That's all I know. And I'm like kind of enjoying like slight anonymity where I just weird,
100%.
but it's nice.
I would, when I came back, and I was like started kind of like seeing people, and I just remember not telling anyone because I just didn't want it. Again, it's not because my band was big or because I'm famous, because I'm not. It was more the fact that it would become a thing, and I didn't want that to be like, because there will be a lot of people who like find that quite still to that, in that, this day and age, a girl who plays guitar and is in a band, that's something a bit exotic about that.
Sure.
And it kind of will, there will be people who will go in for that a little bit, and that will be all you talk about. So I definitely, I remember, I went on a drink with somebody, and it literally all like, I felt like I was just there to talk about my band.
Yeah.
And it was like the fascination with it. Just, it's, I was like, well, I want to get to know you.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's a big part of what I do, but it can definitely be a bit of it's nice, I think, just either way, because I mean, what you do is a big part of who you are, but it's sometimes, I don't think that's the most important thing, especially if you're going in those kind of situations.
Yeah. I always like meeting people. Like I've never dated another comedian. I've never because and people always, they're like, why? I don't understand. That'd be great. Whatever. And I'm like, because I really want the distance from any of that. Like I would much rather.
I can't, it must be pretty tough. I don't know. Would you not feel like you're competing with each other?
Oh,
I don't know. I would probably just feel like I would look at, it'd be hard to be fully supportive of the, because if you're in the same,
wow, that's honest.
But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Here, you're supportive because you love that person, I assume. But at the end of the day, you're always gonna turn that back to you and reflect it back on yourself and your own craft.
Absolutely.
That's how I feel with like my friends are killing it in the music industry, and their bands are totally going off. But it's only natural, I think, that if I'm having a bad day or if I'm not, like, that will like affect how I'm looking at my own, music.
Yes.
And sometimes you just don't want that. So yeah.
Absolutely. I try to like disconnect. Like I would love to like, when my friends and I hang out or go on vacation or anything like that, man, I love to shut all of it off. I'm like, Tom will know, like, 'cause I'll be like, I'm on vacation for a week and I won't be posting or doing anything and I feel like
I think that's really important to do. To not always kind of, especially with social media. I'm not super active on it, but maybe at some point I will be. And I have friends who are literally religiously having to keep up, their social pages, and it's just relentless. They're never switched off.
No.
It's if they've just posted something, they need to think about what they're going to post tomorrow or the day after. It's just never stops.
I've had friends stop me from eating because like the food comes and I guess it's just the right kind of perfect or whatever. And I'm just like, all I want is the food, but they're like, wait, don't like put it back exactly the way you had it. And I'm like, oh my God damn it. Yeah.
I mean, when I was in the band towards the end, I do remember the band members complaining about me being a bit too caught up. Like I was stressed out about social media a lot. I would spend so much time on, just, and it comes also with like, I had at the time, I was doing meetings with like management companies who were tracking the process and the progress of the numbers. So weekly they would have like, what are your numbers this week? And that kind of thing. And that's a lot of times some labels would do that as well. And for me, it's not, it's not a far stretch to see how somebody might get really obsessed with social media, because that is your job.
Yep.
And it's also, I don't know, you're like 21 and somebody keeps asking about your social media numbers, you're going to become really fucking stressed about it.
It is stressful, and they don't really matter. Like I had, we were trying to get something going in Asbury Park, the Stone Pony and all that other stuff. And there's a band that we had on the show, and they got really big, like especially during the pandemic, they were doing streaming stuff or whatever. They're great guys. And they've got like 3-point-something million TikTok followers, right? So I was like, easy sell. We want to do some live gigs and have some comedy and some music and all that other stuff. And I'd sent it over to the booking, like the manager of that club or whatever. And I was like, yeah, they have 3 million TikTok followers, so it should be fine. And he was like, no, that doesn't cut it. And I was like, if that doesn't cut it, like
what does?
What the? Yeah, exactly. Right. I was like, what the fuck? Like, so I don't know. I don't know what people are looking for anymore or what actually works. And,
I speak to so many people who are like talking about this, there's going to be a backlash. It'd be pretty interesting to see what happens just social media wise, because I do feel like people are getting a bit more conscious about the fact, how social media impacts us and how much time we spend on it. And whereas before, a few years ago, maybe we were a bit more wrapped up into that whole thing, whereas now people are starting to separate themselves and just being able to, that little bit of distance has kind of come in, and it'd be interesting to see what happens with that moving forward, if maybe we are going away, away a little bit. I don't know. It'd be pretty nice. At least I think if artists and musicians, if there were different ways, if social media was one way in, but there's also live music and there are other ways of breaking an artist, for example, whereas I feel like now it's very much TikTok focused or very much social media focused, and I truly think that some bands and some artists they are definitely able to be on those platforms, but I don't think every musician and artist is necessarily something that they're not going to break through that medium.
I agree, and it's a shame because it's like, I feel like it gives an excuse for agencies and those kind of people to not really invest in talent. And because I've only read this in books, you know what I mean? Like, because when I started doing stand-up, I was a huge comedy nerd, so I kind of knew what but I guess back in the day, they used to really cultivate. Like, they would be like, this person can grow, and we want to grow with this person.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, what are you coming to the table with? Are you that talent? You're not that good. That's because I remember opening for comedians who were like YouTube sensations when YouTube was like a real big thing, and they would have like maybe 20 minutes when they were doing like a headlining set, and I would kind of like open and do my time and whatever, and it would go well, and then I'd watch them and they wouldn't have enough. and it didn't matter because their fans were just like they would sell the room out, and then you would be like, but they're not getting the fucking show. It's a weird dichotomy. I don't understand it.
I mean, it is. I would say it probably still is an issue with the music industry as well. Like with people they go viral on TikTok. They have one song, and TikTok, that's 15 seconds of a song. So they go viral over 15 seconds of like a lyric that has probably specifically been written for TikTok kind of audience. I can now really quickly spot something that is kind of coming from TikTok, like songwriter wise.
Yes.
It's pretty obvious, and I think that might be a backlash to that as well, because we're basically just being spoon fed this like really short 15-second formula, like with a hook that people need to be able to share. And I don't know where I'm going with this. Where was I?
No, but I love it. The spoon fed thing is a great.
What I was going to say is just like that. The whole idea of like having to go viral and having to create the music around that is they come out and they get signed on the back of like maybe 15, those videos, but it doesn't mean that you're not developed as an artist. You don't have, you don't have maybe the experience, or you don't have the songs, maybe even the catalog that you need to start releasing stuff. And I think it becomes that pressure of like, well, we need to strike while the iron is hot, because you've had that viral, and then they want to go straight in and want to start releasing stuff, but you don't have the necessarily back catalog. So this is the thing about momentum, but it needs to happen in the right time. And I think with social media, sometimes I couldn't imagine anything more like sad than having something go viral and having that momentum, and then losing it because of potentially not having anything to back it up with. So I mean, I can. It's but the double-edged sword. It's
you're absolutely right
for everyone, which is really good. So anyone can make it, but we're putting. I mean, I can just imagine the pressure, just having been there myself as a very young kid on a label, having to feel like I need to maintain this. I mean, I need to keep this up. And you feel that. You feel the numbers. They check your numbers. It's hard. So.
There was I'm sure you know exactly what, because I feel like you touched on it, but maybe you don't. There was a TikTok singer who supposedly wrote a song based off Renaughting suggestion on TikTok.
Yeah.
And somebody did like a deep dive, and it was so pre-planned. So it was like, hey, I'm taking suggestions, and then they would come back with a fully formed like kind of song. And the suggestion,
was it the A B C D E F?
Yes.
That was
wild
just
is that?
But she's been on a major label for years. That's master, like that's just marketing,
It is great marketing,
which is exactly. But TikTok is now, and like any social media, has come to the stage where the little human who hasn't got like that kind of backing and like a marketing master, like it's hard because most of what you see, and they're also able to push those posts to get a lot more views. So while everybody has a fair shot, it's not that fair. It's a lot, it's more complicated than that.
Right. It's a small window of like when a platform like that's the wild, wild west a little bit, where everybody has fair game. It's like something new comes out, and you've got like a little bit of an opportunity to really get your shit out there in an even field. And then before everybody figures out what it is, and everybody kind of markets to it and like, throws money at it and advertising and shit. And you're like, oh my God, it's just been polluted.
Well, once they figure out the algorithm, now you're paying people to beat the algorithm, and now you know how to control the algorithm, and now you can manipulate it. And I feel like that's the, movement.
Absolutely.
It feels like all these platforms, they kind of have this peak, and then it seems to just it just became like it's too saturated.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that it's not good. It's very entertaining, but but it's hard. I mean, it's like
I feel like it's not good. It's very entertaining. Could be the tagline for any social media platform. It's not good, but pretty great entertaining wise.
But it's very entertaining. That's John's next special.
I made my feed is just funny animal videos, like on purpose for my mental health. So I've just made sure that the algorithm knows what's,
I love that because I'll tell you low key right now, I didn't realize this the other day. I follow 16 raccoon accounts.
Wow.
And I didn't realize it because I was just going through my Instagram one day, like looking at I was trying to find somebody. I was looking through my followers and I was like, oh, raccoon account. Oh, another raccoon account. It's like, and it's all these people who like have them as pets and shit or do whatever. And I'm like, baby raccoons and fox and shit.
Yeah.
Are you going back out? Maybe are you coming to the States at all? Can you come to the States? Can England come to the US yet?
Yeah.
I forget. Oh, cool. That's great.
I used to have a visa, but I don't anymore. I think it's like, I know. It's like one of those O1s. But it should be pretty easy to like
acquire.
But but I also like you can go on like Nesta or something. Like but I would love to come back out and play shows because the tours I've done in the US have been so fun.
Oh man.
And honestly, just like the crowds are great, like the food's amazing. Like I don't know, just had always the best food on tour.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I have to say, like tour food is better in the States than
here. Yeah. We know how to eat. We know.
Except for Germany. Germany is for some reason very good as well.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
I got to get to Germany.
We don't have an obesity problem over here for nothing. You know what I mean? Like we get good food. Yeah.
I think we had like Mexican food in San Diego. Like I had Mexican food every night for like a week.
Yeah, it's so good. I love Mexican food so much.
It's my favorite.
Yeah. One time my friend and I were hanging out and it was like a couple of weeks ago and I was like, I really want Mexican food. And she was like, well, there was like nothing around. And then she was like, but there's this other place or whatever. And I think they might have like whatever. And I was like, well, do they have tequila? And she goes, do you just want tequila? And I was like, yeah, I think so. I think maybe I just want tequila. I'm like, I kind of want a quesadilla too or whatever. But yeah, she's like, I think that's a little bit different. Yeah. I was like, I think you just want to drink. But you got to come out here. Maybe we can do some.
I would love that. I think I might go out to do some. I would love to go back out and do some writing and recording as well at some point this year.
Yeah.
But it always depends. We're kind of in that situation now. It's like, hopefully we'll have some answers on a release plan quite soon. And once that gets going, then hopefully.
I hope so. That'd be great. I'd love to come see you live.
I'd love it. I've played in New York, I think. But maybe you weren't there. I played multiple times, but I played in 2017 actually with the Shins at the
No way.
We did 3 shows in New York.
Oh my god, I love the show. That's so great.
Yeah.
Did you have, you know what I didn't get to ask you before? I feel like by the way, if you have, I feel like I'm keeping you for like ever, but I'm not. I'm like I've got nothing. Did you have like, who were your influences when you were young? Because I didn't get to ask you that. Like, were there bands and stuff like that? Was there somebody that sparked your interest?
I was listening to, started with like just proper like rock, indie rock. And I have to say, like where I grew up, because I grew up in Sweden, not in the UK, there, for some reason, we mainly listened to Swedish bands. Like, so up until when I moved, I did, the big ones from the UK and America, obviously, but I very much listened to Swedish music growing up. And like Swedish indie rock primarily. Like there was this one band, like a local band that I absolutely loved, and I had never heard of like Dinosaur Jr. or anything like that, but my old band kept being compared to them. I mean, I was just too young, I think, but like just never heard of them, which is my bad. But
I've seen them live.
But they're amazing.
Yeah,
but we kept getting compared, like style-wise, it's pretty similar. It's like that kind of warm, fuzzy guitar sound, but it kept coming up, and I'd never heard of them. And then I realized the band that I, very much based kid wave sound on, and that I loved so much growing up, was a local band, and they were so influenced by Dinosaur Jr.
Oh my
god! So it's like a roundabout way. So but I only found that out like a few years ago. So but I would always say no. I listen to these Swedish bands that no one's heard of, and they're amazing, like amazing bands, but no one's heard of them. But for me, that was my because I went to their shows and stuff when I was like in school, and I just loved it.
Oh, that's really cool.
So yeah.
Dinosaur Jr. That's so funny. I did not make that comparison, but now that you say that, it kind of rings. Yeah.
It was one of the bands that kept coming. You know, if you do an interview or something, people will like, oh, like, you know, what are your influences, and then they will mention something, and that was one of the bands that kept coming up as in a thing. And same with shoegaze. People kept saying it was a shoegaze record. I'd never listened to shoegaze in my entire life. No idea. Like, I did actually listen to pop. Like, I listened more to pop music than indie guitar music at that point, because I've always listened to pop music, but at that point especially. And you know, I would never put on like, I mean, I like their music, but I would probably not go and stream like I wouldn't have gone and streamed Dinosaur Jr. at that age. I would stream like, I don't know, what was like Robin or something.
right, of course. So
that is also, I mean, I honestly think what happened with that band was that I was really, really bad at recording my own demos, like really bad. So they came out very rough. And I recorded them into my laptop and with a really scruffy guitar sound. And the vocals were just like kind of laptop micy. So it was really muffled. And then I was like, you know, you're crazy when you're that age. You're just like, oh, I'm just going to put this up in Bandcamp or whatever. And straight away it had like this, you know, massive, you know, it was like Arctic Monkeys management contacted me, and then it was like these record labels, and Heavenly got in touch, and they were like, you know, we love this. And they're like, we want to sign this right away. And I was like, yeah, sure. It didn't take a second to be like, oh, maybe I should, you know. I was like, great, this is great. You know, they have a band that I really like. So I was like, sure, you know, let's do it. So it was very quick, but they heard shoegaze or guitar rock, whereas I was thinking, this is what it's pretty shit. Like the recordings are so bad that I think it came across on purpose. Like it was bad on purpose. Like, you know, it was like fully like wall of guitars, but it was actually just me not being very good at what I was doing. So I think all the way through I actually wanted to make it a bit more pop, a bit more direct, but you know, it turned out to be a shoegazy record.
That's so crazy. We talk about this a lot too. But when you're younger, the impetus to kind of just toss something out there regardless is so crazy. Like, I wish I still had that, because you never know. Like, somebody, you know, it's you're like, when you're older, you're way too judgy and like in your head about stuff. But when you're younger, everything's so pure, and you're just like, sure, I'm gonna, like you just said, you're like, oh, I'm sure I'm gonna toss this out on Bandcamp and see what happens. And whatever.
I mean, you're just naive about things, right? Like, I remember, you know, they contact. Now I'd be like, I should never go and play a show in front of these people if I haven't practiced. But we did. Like, I just, because they all asked, are you playing any shows? And I was like, no, like, I don't even have a band. But because they kept asking, I was like, sure, I'll just play a show. So we did a show, and I couldn't afford rehearsal spaces, but I had like a few friends, so we got together and we started just doing the set. I think we had 2 rehearsals, and it was the worst sounding gig you can ever imagine. The guitarist played the wrong song throughout, like the third song. So he was on song 4, but we were on song 3 the whole way through. And I to this day do not know. Like, that was, I think he's now the manager of Royal Blood, but I don't know if he made it to the show or not. Back then I was like, of course I'm gonna do this. But now I'm just like, what the hell? Like,
oh, that is so wild.
I wish somebody could have just stepped in and be like, no, you know, honey, just right.
But what's cool is you survive. Like, that's the cool thing too, is like, I mean, what you can survive, you know, career wise and just performance-wise.
I mean, the fact, I mean, I gotta give it to the guys at Heavenly for being so passionate. When they find something they like, they were just going like, but our first year was really tough live wise. We kept getting like, you're not good enough live, this sounds, it's not tight, and like, you know, fair enough, because we were you know, it takes time and lots of rehearsing and touring to sound good. And you don't have that when you're that age, and you're also like doing things for the first time. I didn't play music from the age of 12. So we were all learning as we were going.
Do you remember when it clicked for you?
What?
Do you remember when it clicked for you? Like a moment where you were like, holy shit, the whole band came together, this is great.
After touring, it was so So normally, and this is still to this day, like if you like, I remember being like, if you do like 5 or 7 days in a row, by day 3 or 4, you'll start to feel a flow. What you want is really that feeling of like not having to think about what you're doing on stage.
Right.
And the first year, I was literally just focused on my guitar pedals and so many different things. And it took a long time to get to the point where I didn't have to consciously think about every single thing, and I could just focus on the performance, delivering the songs, and all that.
That's awesome.
But touring, I would say probably once we had our few like couple of first tours and gone through like the first few days, and then doing that over and over and over again, like another tour and then another tour, and then now I would probably do it differently. I would rehearse properly. We were struggling in many ways.
That's crazy. But that's awesome though. At least you had those experiences, you know.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm a bit like, oh, I wish I hadn't fucked it up, but it's a part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen to you like when you're young, it's gonna happen at some other point. You gotta make the mistakes at some point. It's I don't think there's any way of avoiding. Like sooner or later, it will. You need to learn.
Is there any particular song from like your Kid Wave days that you would love to bring back and implement into like a set list?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, the music is so different.
Yeah.
It also feels like I got such a distance to it. There are definitely. I mean, there's an outro track that's pretty. Like, I feel like the Kid Wave record is very much a result of like my growing up years. It's very introverted. It's very kind of like anxiety ridden and all that. It's like very introverted, where it's very dreamy, like always like that kind of like wanting to be somewhere else.
Right.
Whereas I've kind of done that where I've now been somewhere else a little bit.
Right.
I think the elements of what makes it me, what my writing, that's still there, but I think it's definitely not us. I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. Maybe we'll do a reunion tour like in 10 years.
Well, like it's funny because like what you just said about the lyrics stuff like that, I was wondering if you had some kind of distance from it, because it is almost like looking at photographs of yourself when you were younger. You'd be like, I remember this person, but that's a completely different person to me.
It is. It feels like that. It was because I was a teenager, I guess. And
sure.
It's you're just having a completely different experience, but inherently it doesn't feel like. I still very much listen. If I listen to it, I'll feel like I'm very proud of that album, and I feel like
the lyrics are weighty even for a teenager too. Like the lyrics are they feel like they deal with a lot of stuff. They do.
I mean, I think I did deal with a lot of stuff as well. So that is it was an echo of that, but I definitely feel like the it's it's just kind of it's such a different project that it makes it hard, but maybe it's never say never.
Well, it's cool. I'm looking forward to everything. I like I said, I love the new stuff that you had. I'm so glad I found like the new, because that was a thing I wasn't sure where you guys
haven't shouted about it. We haven't shouted. Like it's literally just been like I just put up a few songs online to kind of get a bit of just a bit of a presence online before kind of trying to get this off the ground. But,
I love the album cover too. I like it's very artsy and stuff, and
the red. I'm like surrounded by it.
But awesome. The new music's great. I got to ask you 3 questions that we ask every guest that comes onto the show. So first one is, if you can go back in time and talk to your younger self at any age, what piece of advice would you give yourself that would help you today?
Not to worry so much, but I would still do that. So
you wouldn't listen.
I'm a chronic worrier. Like I'm literally,
I hear you. I totally understand it. You would probably just shake yourself, make peace with it.
I mean, why not? I probably needed to hear it then as well. So.
And the second question is, what had to end in your life, good or bad, that led you to where you are today?
Oh, what had to end?
And personally or career-wise, whatever you want.
Oh, so much. Kid Wave, I think. My band.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, that's great. Was it sad when it ended? Were you ready?
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely about time. So it's like closing a chapter to your like teenage years as well. But it, you know, I was ready for it, and everybody was, I think so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you
but it
look
was
at stuff
definitely-
creatively as having an eventual end?
No,
That's good.
no. As in,
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? Like, as in, like, just
like, do you, like, is it on your mind? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you like, some people I know feel like whatever the thing is that they're, whether it's good or bad, like whether it's good or not, they're like, oh, it's gonna end, it's all gonna come down. You know what I mean? It's got to stop sometime. I've got to stop sometime. You know what I mean? I try not to
like as if you
think
have
like
a bit
that.
of like you put a deadline for yourself or something.
Yeah, like there's a mental thing where you're like, creatively, like, when is this gonna run out? Like, am I gonna have to stop doing this thing? And I've tried, so I never think about it, but I know some people do.
Yeah, it sounds like such a stressful thought.
Yeah, I know. I feel bad that I just put it in your head now, and you're
no,
like, I wasn't.
No, I mean, I honestly think anyone who does anything like this does. I mean, I'm sure people like business owners does as well.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's a universal thing, like with relationships, anything.
Oh yeah,
it's cyclical.
Yeah.
So
relationships especially.
well, I mean, pretty much anything you do, even I guess, you know, if you work full time somewhere, you probably don't take that job thinking that, oh, I'm going to be here till I'm like retiring. Like,
right.
I'm sure people will like, oh, I'm going to be in this for a while. But I mean, creatively, no.
That's great. Good.
You know, I need to be focused on what I'm doing now. I think just not think about like a project that I want to do musically in 20 years. I'm sure that will just happen naturally.
That's great. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And the last question is ties into the show. My favorite question is, if this was a genuine dystopia and alien zombies, a comet heading toward the Earth, or climate change, or whatever, and it's everybody's last day, how would you want to spend your last day? What would be your epic death?
Oh, I mean, would I go with the aliens? Would I go back?
Whatever you want.
Good.
Yeah,
you
whatever. What is your genuine?
I think that would be pretty cool. I think, you know, with Scout, that's all about, you know, I would probably say I would rather it be a beginning, like a new beginning, than the end. Like I would probably rather like go up.
That's
great.
Great
Perspective.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah,
new beginning rather than an end.
Yeah, if I get to bring people, like
yeah,
I mean, it's my final wish, right? Do whatever I want. Yeah, I'll have a nice big feast. Just lots of dogs. I'll take all the dogs with me.
No, I thought you meant for the feast. I was like, weird, but okay.
Oh, the dogs can feast as well.
Like half a second. I was like, oh my god, we just found something out about her towards the end of the podcast that nobody knew.
Eating dogs.
Oh no. I mean, like having a big feast with all my friends and
nice.
All my friends, loved ones, like anyone can come, and then like lots of like dogs and animals and shit, and then I'll just take, if we all have to leave, because we better, because you know, dystopia, I'll just take them all on the spaceship, and then we'll leave together, and then we'll just, you know, a bit like that, what was the Netflix movie where they come out onto a new planet? That's how I imagine it. But like that's like, what's it called?
Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up. Do you know the ending?
Good.
So good. The ending, that's how I'm picturing it, but like all the first, not just like the few select ones.
Right.
What if the aliens were like, you have to leave one behind? Who's it going to be?
Ooh.
Oh, God. It would probably be a racist.
Oh, nice.
Any.
So you have a friend at your feast that's a racist. Now we got research for Bill to do.
No, the racist wouldn't be allowed. The racist wouldn't be like that would not be allowed. I'm not counting them as my close friends and family.
I'm only kidding.
That's so sad. We're ending it, and we boxed her into a corner.
Yeah,
like,
I know. I feel like this.
Have some racists that are friends, do you?
I mean, we're talking anyone who's like a bully, a racist, a homophobe, anything like that.
Yeah, agreed. That's a good one. Yeah.
I'd like to think I'm a progressive person. So they can stay behind, because in, you know, where we're going, those kind of beliefs do not exist.
It's
I love
utopia.
That. Yeah, exact opposite of the end of Don't Look Up, where only all the old rich people survive.
We're going if we're going, we're going to a better place.
Beautiful. Love it. It was great talking to you. I'm so glad we got to meet and stuff online.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you so much. And yeah, hopefully, you're going to send me the Instagram login dates.
And you got homework to do. You got to go cover.
Yeah,
You can
I
call
will
me out.
slide into DM right after this.
Start recording that, and John is gonna get a bongo set. He's gonna get a whole bunch of instruments and a white room. We're gonna do this on TikTok.
Well, no, I'm gonna get whatever that reel thing is, where I can make money on my reels.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting out of
that.
this.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that for you and see, because I can't imagine it's only for. I don't know what it is. I'll figure it out for you though. Awesome. Yeah. And then you got to make your way out here, by the way. I mean, I always tell people to come to me for some reason, but I should probably be like, I'm going to come to England. I never volunteer.
You get it. Hit me up if you come to London at some point.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, we'll do. I have family out there.
Hitting Sweden soon too.
I agree. So. Yeah. I'll come out to Sweden if you guys go to Sweden as well.
I've never been to Sweden ever. I mean, I've heard the only thing I know about Sweden is the chef from the Muppets.
Right. They're cancelled right now.
Shit! Oh, wow! I don't know either. Holy shit!
What did he do?
All right. Well, it was great talking to you. Thanks again so much.
Yeah.
I'll hit you up on Instagram.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Dystopia tonight.